I'm Kerry Flynn, I'm a marketing reporter at Digiday, and we're here today to talk about digital video, which I'm told is very important as I hold my phone and watch a lot of videos while moderating this panel. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves, just tell me your name, job title, and what you actually do within your company.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Andrew Bolton. I'm the SVP of Partnerships here at Knotch. I'm actually standing in for our CEO who has the Dreamforce flu coming back, so I am as good as we get to from Knotch.
Ashkan Karbasfrooshan, you can call me Ash, founder, CEO of WatchMojo. Basically, I instigate and then I get out of the way, and I traffic control, not like web traffic, just make sure that culture communication stays intact as we go from 5 people to 75 people.
I'm Rich Greenfield. I write research on media tech companies. If you're a legacy media executive, you probably want me dead. If you work in new media, you're probably really excited to meet me. We try to really look at the intersection of media and tech and try to figure out which stocks win, which stocks lose, and everything in between as those two worlds of media and tech collide. Happy to be here.
So happy to have you. I'm going to stick with you. So we're 2 days into advertising week. What have you noticed? Is there one particular theme or anything particularly interesting that caught your eye so far?
Look, I think there's a lot of the legacy TV world that is really happy that, despite the fact that last week was the first week of the new TV season, ratings were down somewhere between 20 and 50%. Numbers that honestly look like mistakes when you see just how fast the viewership is falling. But there's this kind of strong sense across the last couple of days of well, the TV advertising is it's down a little, but it's flattish, it's not terrible. CPMs are basically making up for it, and everyone keeps saying, well, there's just not enough scale yet. There isn't, you can't trust those numbers. You don't have the data to back it up. Everyone, it's almost like things like the Facebook stumbles and kind of the fears of content adjacency on YouTube. All of it makes kind of the legacy ecosystem feel better, that they're safe for now. But you can kind of feel the barbarians at the gate, they're storming and they're beating, and you can hear the pressure building. And the question just is, when does the gate break? When do they get into the castle and start really attacking it? And I think that's the real challenge. And it may not be in the next 6 months, it may not be in the next 12 months, but you can hear that drumbeat getting louder because the ROI, when you have viewership dropping this fast, it has everyone talking the ROI on TV is getting really expensive, really fast, because the eyeballs are dropping so much. So I think that theme of the push and pull versus digital versus traditional has been very acute and very loud over the last couple of days.
Awesome, I liked your metaphors. So I know you mentioned Facebook stumbles. So I remember back 2 years ago, Advertising Week, where Facebook had that video metrics scandal, and they had 20-something measurement flaws or something. So going to you, Andrew, I'm curious to hear, so that was 2 years ago. What do you think has changed in the measurement world? Has it actually, Rich was talking about how we have these dominant players and advertisers are now kind of waking up to it. When it comes to actually measuring that ROI that Rich mentioned, is it actually possible now?
Well, as it relates to Facebook, not much has changed, I don't think. It seems very status quo in many ways there. I think the one thing that we've noticed at Knotch, we're a data company. Transparency is very important to us, and we work directly with a lot of different brands and their CMOs. Is they do care about measuring what's happening and doing what they can measure, right? So they understand that Facebook and YouTube is going to be proprietary, and they're going to have the walled gardens, and they're not going to be able to get all the data that they want, but they're going to try to start building models where they can at least build in a little bit of margin for error. But what we've seen a big press on is going back to, at least from a content perspective, having owned content hubs where they can get a lot of first-party data and they can really understand their audiences more and engage with them in a much more meaningful way. And that's been amplified by things like GDPR in Europe, where all of a sudden now you need to have the people on the mothership basically to really understand what's going on. So I think shifts in measurement happen very slowly over time, and they're going to happen very slowly in the Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, walled garden world. But there's things that brands can do right now to take a little bit more ownership in the interim.
So Ash, I know you're going to share the top 10 YouTube tips later. I'm excited for that. But
so stereotypical.
Before we get there, I guess I'm curious to hear about, I know we've talked a lot about Facebook, you just said Snapchat. Would you say is YouTube still king in online video, or are these other players that I just mentioned?
No, absolutely. I think if YouTube started the year at 11, it's now at 15. I think Facebook, I wouldn't say has regressed, obviously. But I mean, look, two things to note. YouTube is a natural native video platform, so I think that gives it an inherent edge. But two, I think if you go back to the...
Meaning it's like Kleenex for video.
No, I don't think it's good. Oh, yes, I do think to some extent. I thought you meant Kleenex as in a negative sense. You mean the brand.
Sorry,
yes.
no.
Yes, I was like, what a cheap shot. I thought you were Team Digital, dude. Okay. Yes, in that sense, in terms of brand equity, goodwill, yes, that's a good analogy. But the main thing to note is if you go back to philosophies and why they are in where they're at now, Google's pedigree from the beginning was send traffic out, share revenue through AdSense and all that. So that, I think, has trickled down to YouTube. I mean, we've been at this since 2006. From day one, YouTube doesn't get things right necessarily right away, but they do eventually get it somewhat right. And I think from day one, they've been very big on sharing revenues and whatnot, and kind of ensuring that the ecosystem succeeds. Now, they make a lot of mistakes. Facebook, the entire DNA of the business is keep all the traffic, get brands and get companies to pay it for visibility and traffic. So this expectation that Mark Zuckerberg's going to wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to now reverse that and pay people and pay companies that have been paying me is delusional. And I think folks, like Jonah Peretti at BuzzFeed, fantastic entrepreneur and executive, but I think when you hear him say, oh, Facebook will eventually share, I mean, wishing is not a strategy. I just don't see that happening to the same extent that YouTube does, and I think that's why they've remained and strengthened their position in video.
Yeah. It's also not as important to them, right? I mean, that's the other aspect. Like, video is so core to YouTube and to Google from a whole holistic experience. I try to find a video. Like, if I wanted to find a WatchMojo video, if you want to pick your creator, but finding video on any platform other than YouTube, I find to be very challenging today.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the differences. The other one, like to your point, is a few years ago you heard Facebook talk a lot about pay. If today you went on Google and tried to find an article on Facebook.com about their pay initiative, good luck. It's not existent, right? So I'm not sure if video and watch will go down that same path, because ultimately it's a communications platform and video is part of communication. But I've always said, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if Facebook is going to be this hub of entertaining and informational content really when the dust settles. I see it more like if 5 years ago you shared a picture of your little nephew or niece, Joey, now you're going to share a video of Joey. And I think that's really the more native way. But ultimately, because of the higher CPMs and because of just the sheer size of the TV ad market, you understand why they're going to be gunning for it. But I just don't see them following through the way that YouTube has been just razor sharp focused on it, because it's their everything.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, so we talked a lot about Facebook and YouTube, but what about the other big video players? I guess I would say Netflix, Hulu. I spent a lot of time at their lounge today charging my phone. There's Disney Flix. I know it's a favorite of yours, Rich, I think. When that's coming, how it's coming. What did those platforms really mean in the space of publishers and then for advertisers? Do you feel like there's a push and pull from both sides?
Well, look, I go back to, I don't think that a lot of these platforms believe in advertising. I mean, I think that's one of the really big existential questions for Ad Week is, as you look out 4 or 5 years, how are you going to reach consumers? Because TV viewership is clearly going down. There's a lot of ads in TV. If you watch any TV show, you'll know there's lots of ads, 18 plus minutes an hour. If you think about Apple, which is going to launch a big video platform next year, Eddie Q was on stage probably 2 years ago now and said, I don't watch ads, my kids don't watch ads, my consumers who buy my devices aren't asking for ads, we're not going to do ads. Amazon doesn't have ads, and yeah, they're going to launch them tomorrow with some ads, so it's not completely true. But more and more, Disney Flix I don't think is going to have ads. I mean, more and more of the places that you're finding high quality content are not going to have ads, which is going to make the places where it does exist, whether it be YouTube or Facebook or wherever else, I think only that much more valuable, because I think a lot of the high-end publishers or the premium publishers from a content standpoint are not going to put ads. I mean, you mentioned Hulu, they're sort of the exception because they're in that world of TV and they're trying, when you're owned by the networks that have to justify advertising, they can't not do advertising. But, if you look at the growth, the Hulu growth of ad-free subscribers dwarfs the growth of with ad. subscribers. So I think people are voting with their feet that, you know, if given the choice, people will pay a little bit to avoid ads, especially during any form of long-form content. I mean, watching The Crown or watching Handmaid's Tale and being interrupted for 18 minutes an hour would definitely change the experience.
Andrew, let's talk about ad effectiveness. So fun fact, last night I was served my first Snapchat commercial, which is their like 6-second ad where like you're forced to watch it within their content.
First time?
Yeah.
Is that because you're a light Snapchat user?
No, I'm a really heavy Snapchat user. I don't know why. I was watching a show. Maybe I don't watch a lot of shows.
It's only in the shows.
Yeah.
You won't get it in publisher
It's
stores.
like they're like high quality stuff. And it was a good ad. It was Chick-fil-A. Like I remember it, right? So I guess I'm curious to hear like there's formats like that. There's, you know, YouTube has what they call bumper ads, you know, same format. Are those really what, from your understanding, like really what's going to be effective in the future when you're forced to watch these ads tucked within their high quality content, whatever channel it may be?
I mean, ultimately, it's just another banner ad, really. It's just, you know, I think Twitter quantifies a video view as 2 seconds, so what's the difference between 2 seconds and 6 seconds? I think it comes down to the difference between, like, what is advertising and what is content, right? And I think that shorter form, 6-second, 3-second, 1-second videos, whatever it may be, are great ways of getting your voice across from an advertising perspective. But as more ad-free platforms come up, brands need to focus more on how can I reach consumers with content where there's actually a value exchange, right? Which is making a consumer smarter, entertaining them, creating an emotional connection. That's going to become much more important. And whether they're doing it that with like kind of like shorter form content, medium content, or longer form content, kind of remains to be seen, like what can be supported. But I think that that is something that's going to make the internet a better place because it's less like blasting you in the face with ads all day and actually giving you something that you care about. And I think that that's just going to be kind of where things start to go. But there will be always a place for the 6-second quick hit. Like I want to get my point across.
No,
you know?
You know, it's interesting you say that because I look at my 15-year-old daughter and she tells me the other day, she's like, "Daddy, I love cheddar." And I go, "Watching cheddar?" And I was like kind of shocked. She goes, "Yeah, online they have like, I think on Instagram and on Facebook, they have those short videos of like unique inventions that are like really fun. It has nothing to do with what cheddar really is day to day, but it's a great way of getting the brand out, and she knows the brand because it's it's content, not advertising, even though it's actually an ad for the larger brand."
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, I mean, there's a great example, like I watch a decent amount.
John Steinberg did not pay me.
You're like, plug. Like I watch, you know, decent amount of YouTube videos and whatnot, and I think that every time an ad comes up that's skippable, I skip it almost every single time. And the ones that I'm forced to watch, then I get really aggravated, even within that first 6 seconds. However, what I have found is there are some that are skippable ads that they will hook me in those first 3 or 4 seconds, and then I caught myself watching literally a 15-minute pre-rolled documentary for Visit Seattle featuring Dave Grohl, and I was like, "This is fucking great." Yeah, and so like that was
She did not have that Chick-fil-A experience.
No.
But I think, okay, there's 2 points. One, I think ultimately advertising has to be good, and that's the good silver lining that, yeah, like the same way that like social media allows athletes to go directly and brands go directly to consumers, I think what the transformative nature of marketing is that's happening before our eyes is that like if the advertising is not good, it won't be effective. So you're going to see better storytelling through whether it's 6 seconds or 6 minutes. But 2, with all due respect, I generally agree with everything you say or most of it. But I think that's a very like
most people don't. So
most people don't. Yeah, I'm already ahead. No, I think that's a very. The word is not elitist. It's not ethnocentric. It's not even rich. But it's a very kind of Western view that, hey, we're rich relative, like we're in the 1%, so we'll obviously pay for that convenience. Advertising will always be around. There are people who struggle to put food on their table, pay their rent. I guarantee you they are not scrambling to go get their credit card, which probably is at the limit anyway, to skip an ad, right? In the same way that in other emerging countries, you get people gaining bigger discretionary incomes, the same way that like the Procter & Gamble saw a need to do soap operas to sell soap, you're going to see that just transfer across the globe, where in emerging nations, there's going to be maybe more people paying for content in North America and Germany and Sweden and the powerful, rich countries. But everywhere else in the world, I guarantee you that it's going to be ad supported as these companies want to market, export globally. Just wanted to, add.
I was at Carolyn Everson of Facebook's talk yesterday, and that was like her big thing, where it was like, there's the farmer in Kenya who will not do that, and that's why Facebook will always have ads. And yeah.
I mean, brands pay for the internet. Full stop. It's just about how they reach them.
And even Netflix is running ads. Those promos you see for their shows, at some point, they'll just have, I mean, look, it's also like, just to answer Wall Street, we never thought that Google would actually have Project Dragonfly, which is like a censored search engine in China, and it's happening. We thought that the internet would always be anything goes with regards to copyright. Guess what? The Germans and the French got together, and they're going to pull a number of laws in Europe, and the folks at Google are probably freaking out because they're afraid that they'll have to make these changes globally, including USA. So I just think it's, you just have to bear in mind that like the times are changing, but yeah, like brands support the internet.
The only thing I would react to is the lens of how you monetize historically. Obviously, if you go back to the earliest days of radio and television, obviously it was through advertising. But we're really going to look at a new lens for how you monetize. So, Amazon thinks about paying for content by you buying more shoes or buying a mattress that they launched yesterday.
Did they really?
They launched their own mattress brand, yeah. Basic, very cheap. But the point is, Apple's going to give away for the first time ever multiple billions of dollars of content every single year from J.J. Abrams. You name the cast, it's going to be this incredible group of creators. They're going to give it away as long as you buy an iPhone or buy a TV OS. No subscription, free. No ads, free. The only way they make money is by you buying into their ecosystem of devices. So the lens of how you monetize content creation on the internet is going to be different, and it may not fit into that advertising world that we're used to. There may be other initiatives, ecosystems, whether retail or devices, that could shift this argument to a new area.
Even fan-funded stuff. I mean, the fact that like channels can go to their audience and say, pay something and we're going to produce this show or this event. I mean, that's a kind of...
Especially in Asia, right? I mean, that's a huge business in Asia.
All good. Pretty loud.
Well, I guess back to that side, the other side of the coin, the creator and the publisher. I feel like, I don't know if you guys watched the Emmys. I did. I was one of 5 people, I think. But so there was a lot of jokes in the beginning about like how like Netflix and Amazon has everything, and really what that means for TV shows, right? Like it completely changes the landscape. And separately too, like I was at VidCon, and you hear from those creators on YouTube about how they can't survive on just YouTube anymore, right? They need to be everywhere. There's a weird confusion of like, okay, yay, I land the Netflix deal and I'm set for life, or like, oh no, now I need to like be on YouTube and Facebook and whatever not. Like in terms of like what you guys predict like going ahead, is that...
I think everybody fundamentally always thinks that the grass is greener on the other side. That's the thing. If you're popular, whoa, so is that me down? If you're popular on YouTube, you were kind of taking YouTube for granted, and you saw the shiny object. That's human nature. It's nothing to do with whether you're a creator or whatever. You always think that the grass is greener on the other side. So yeah, I think if you are popular, like on, you're winning the Emmys and the Oscars, you feel like, hey, my kid is going to like me more now that I'm taking this picture with this YouTube creator. But if you're a YouTube creator, what do they all have in common? They all actually wanted to be on the Hollywood side. And I just think that's human nature.
Well, it's also just about like diversification in a way, and I think people are getting smart that they need to have different revenue sources. Like look at musicians, right? Like musicians initially were all about like album sales and touring, right? Then all of a sudden Spotify and Napster and whatever came along and disrupted that and democratized the distribution or stole music from artists. And then they're like, oh, well now I've got to go and I've got to tour and I've got to have a product line and I'm going to do an endorsement and I'm going to do that. And I think that creators that kind of like sit back and say like, oh, this is my one medium and this is what I do, they are missing the boat because they need to monetize their brand in other ways to reach consumers and also get more revenue themselves. And that will then in turn help brands because brands are always looking for those ways to connect with consumers through those creators.
I also think the creators...
I win.
I don't know what's going on.
Game of survival.
You can use that.
There we go. I think the challenge for all of these platforms is they sort of each have their own purpose. And so I think it's less about choosing between them, then recognizing how to use each one of them. And I think, Twitter can be a great mechanism for talking to your fans directly. Instagram can be a great way of, creating engaging short form video content in a story. YouTube can be great for longer form, up to 30 minutes, an hour, in some of YouTube's content. So I think each platform has very different use cases, and I think the best creators that we talk to understand what works where and are tracking and trying to understand from a measurement standpoint where to put effort and what the ROI on that effort is in terms of what they're trying to accomplish with whatever the content they're creating is. But I think it's not one versus the other. It's figuring out what each platform is good at and what, how to make use of it.
It's also about fragmentation. The same thing that happened when, back in the old days, you could reach 80% of America through the 3 networks, then Fox, and then you had all cable. Well, the same thing is basically happening to online, where you used to have the portals, then forget that, and now you have all these different platforms and apps and whatnot. I just think you're going to see more and more of that. And that's just, I think, the nature of digital, because the underlying reality of digital production and distribution is like that the marginal cost is 0. So you can create another website for practically nothing. You could create another app for practically nothing. Whereas back in the day, setting up a magazine cost a fortune. Starting a radio channel took money. Starting a TV channel it costs a lot of money. So that's the main thing, is with digital, it doesn't cost really anything to do yet another thing. That's why everybody does yet another thing.
Well, I want to end on a fun note. We're talking about digital video. You can really pick any platform. I want to know what I should be watching. Give me something to binge.
You want a show to watch?
Or it can be like a YouTube star. I don't know. Tell me some high quality content.
I'm addicted to Fauda right now. I'm late to it, but I started watching finally. Israeli original on Netflix. If you haven't seen Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I can't say it, but that was awesome. I think that was truly one. Now I'm a New York Jew, so there was definitely overwhelming targeting of that show to me, but that was awesome. I think, look, if you've got, if you're trying to look at what the younger generation is doing, I think looking at, in terms of one of the more interesting content creators that I've seen, I think looking at what Brat's trying to do with YouTube stars and try to create content, and what is specifically interesting, I think, is looking at how someone like Brat is using the Instagram success of their talent and driving the users over to YouTube, and that symbiotic relationship across platforms to create value and raise the level of celebrity of the talent.
I'm going to cheat. Instead of naming a random show, just because I watch mainly, I listen to music on YouTube, to be honest. But I'll give you an example of a company. No, I'll tell you a company that I respect for how they finally did their own pivot. So Complex, I got to know Rich and a few other guys way back, and they were like, we want to buy WatchMojo, we want to partner with WatchMojo, and eventually they were like, we're just going to copy WatchMojo's top 10. And I was like, great, we didn't invent this. Wayne's World, Dave Letterman, Moses, the 10 Commandments. It's yours. It's a format we mastered, but we don't own it, obviously. But what I really liked about them is they kind of realized, I'm guessing, that, okay, we're not just going to go and copy WatchMojo that's become known for these top 10s. So they kind of went and they probably said, well, what does our brand stand for? What does our audience want? And with something like First We Feast, the chicken wing thing, the name escapes me, Hot Ones. So the thing with Hot Ones is, I've watched only maybe 1 or 2 episodes, but just you watch it for 5 seconds, and you're like, they nailed it. They had a problem. They recognized it was an opportunity, but they didn't go out and, and I told Rich ages ago, I was like, when BuzzFeed came on the scene, did it kind of bother you that they were getting all the press and that they were getting all the raves? But it would have been very easy for them to BuzzFeed themselves. Just go for, let's copy other people. But they didn't do that, and they started doing some top 10s, but they realized this isn't our lane, what are we trying to do? So I really respect them for a brand that had a problem and recognized that if they're going to move into video, they really had to do it and make it their own. And they get, A+. You see Hot Ones in ads of video games now. You know what I mean? When you just think of what they've done, and props to them, and I think that's a very good example, case study. Plugging an indirect competitor.
Great.
I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry. I know.
So much content out there.
I think my own team can attest that I've actually never watched like Game of Thrones, and I'm not a binge watcher at all. They always think that's kind of crazy. I will say that on YouTube, what I have found is, and this is kind of a duh thing, but like I found a good niche of things I really like. So I'm really into cars, and I found like 3 kind of key auto influencers that make just really good content that are all very different from each other. And I find myself, I just kind of rotate through them, and that's like my little bit of daily decompression. So, but yeah, I'm not a big binge TV watcher, so I've got nothing for you. I'm sorry.
You're like the kid watching YouTube. That's like.
I guess.
Wait.
Actually, no. I should say though, my daughter, on the other hand, though, when on the rare case that she has a YouTube.
Only because it reminds me when you say YouTube and you don't really watch that much stuff. I just found that there was a whole new category of content on YouTube that was huge, and I'm sure maybe half the younger people in the room know this already. But I didn't realize that study with was a thing. That like you can put on videos where you there's people on the screen that are studying, so you don't feel like you're studying alone.
Oh, wow.
You can choose with or without music, so that you don't feel like you're alone in the library or wherever you are. And they have millions of views, and obviously like someone from Google's in the room. Like there's real money being made, and I'm just crazy that like it's just a video of staring at someone study. And I obviously chose the wrong career path, that's all.
I also haven't seen Game of Thrones, by the way. Yeah, I mean, look, YouTube is more dominant in video than Google is in search, and I think they have all the information. They have it all. There's a video for anything. It's just, I'm not surprised that they have it, although that's...
You can study with somebody.
If you want to try,
you can make that video.
If you want to try an interesting experiment around like there's a video for everything, is when I give my 2.5-year-old daughter an iPad, which is very rare occasions, like I'm waiting in a restaurant or something like that, and she'll just start tapping next, and then how about this one? Now how about this one? Now how about this one? And she ends up on like listening to like Blue's Clues, but it's in Portuguese, and it's bonkers how deep you can go, and like there's millions of views on these things. So, anyways.
That sounds good. Like Blue's Clues. It's not. They're not getting into crazy conspiracy.
No. The algorithm's a little bit better.
Also, on that note, I know Rich has to leave. I want to thank all of you so much for chatting with me. And now we're going to get into YouTube Top 10. Thank you guys.
Thanks,